Hello, Tina. It's good to see you again. Welcome, everyone, to our final 52. Well, not quite final because we're going to do a summary video at some point in the not too distant future to bring it all together. But we're at key 52.
Amen.
Very exciting point to get to
Yeah.
because it's been quite a journey, a really brilliant journey, encouraging, challenging, full of little bits of revelation along the way. And we do encourage you, if you haven't already, to sign up onto the YouTube channel. But what's the YouTube channel called, Tina?
It should be, I think, is it just under my name? I can't remember. I'm less proficient on the technical things, Mark. I'll let you know by the time we get to the next one. I'll do some
Yeah,
research
that will be in the summary video.
in the summary video. Yes.
I'm sure if you searched Tina Hodges, you would
Yeah.
find
Tina
it.
C. Hodges,
Tina C.
or Tina Hodges. Yeah. Just
Yeah,
have to recognise this mug.
I might have have a little look as you're speaking, just to kind of see whether I can find it and
Okay.
tell
Okay.
everyone. So yeah, little tangent. Okay, back into Let's talk about choosing the right encouragers. Those of you watching, joining in online, we'd love to hear from you. Any feedback at all is great. But Tina, you were just saying actually it's a tricky one to name this.
Yes. Um, really, the crux of it is how the company, the people that we hang with and who are an integral part of our life, how they impact our growth, our success, and particularly our prosperity. That's, but it would be a long and unwieldy title. So that's why I put choosing the right encouragers for prosperity. Because this isn't something that I did knowingly. It's something I've learned along the journey that the right people actually help my journey in faith in this area, and the wrong ones really are like a spanner in the works. They really don't help me at all, and in fact become a hindrance. So I wondered if everyone, if you could think of 5 people that you spend most of your time with, are they actually helping you or hindering you in the area of prosperity? And the key verse around this is Proverbs 13, verse 20, that says, "He who walks with wise men will be wise, but the companion of fools will be destroyed." So it matters who we hang out with. Our key relationships should be shaping our faith. They should be helping us in this whole area of financial prosperity, so that when we walking, not just now, but in the future, we've got around us godly people who are wise and they're faithful, and we're all walking in the same direction together. So, in other words, it's about the power of association.
Yeah.
So, because the right people lead, and my first point is the right people lead to blessing, and the wrong people don't. In fact, we know, don't we, only having sort of general grasp of the Bible, how having the wrong people around you, there's many stories, having the wrong people around you are actually the opposite of blessing. I'm thinking of Samson and Delilah. She was not a blessing to him. He thought she was, because she gave him what he wanted in the moment, but that's no good. You don't want yes people around you. You want people who are faithful to God and who are righteous. So Psalm 1, verses 1 to 3, one of my favorite verses. Blessed is the one who does not walk with the ungodly, or stand, blah, blah, blah. You know the whole verse. Whatever he does, he shall prosper.
Yeah.
I like that. And you only have to look at people like Abraham, who was told about leaving Lot behind. That actually, once he's separated from Lot, that's when the Lord said to him, "Right, pretty much everything you see, I'm going to give you now." For some reason, having Lot with him would have been a hindrance. Maybe, it was about his key kind of family relationships getting in the way. But the key takeaway from that is not everyone that is with us is meant to go with us into our next season of blessing. They could have been a fantastic blessing in the last season, but the direction God's taking us to next may not be right for them to come with us. And in fact, the wrong people can absolutely sabotage what it is we're doing.
Yeah.
1 Corinthians 15:33 says, evil company corrupts good habits. There are people who, we lose money being around them. Either they're leading us into ways that aren't appropriate, or we're having to lend the money or whatever. They haven't got the mindset. And there are many people who are Christian, who I know in this category, who think that because they're Christian and they give regularly, that they're the right people to hang out with. No, there's so much of their heart that's not yet sanctified, where they're not putting into action the things of the kingdom. And so they're not necessarily the right people to have around us, but they will lead us down the wrong track. So Proverbs 22 says, don't make friends with an angry man in case you learn his ways and set a snare for your soul, as it says. Um, you know, Solomon, I think of Solomon when I think of this, because Solomon, he started really well, didn't he? If you look at his commissioning, as it were, when he made a very public profession to God in front of his people, he started really well. But the problem was, because he had a like for women, and he had so many wives and concubines, I don't know where he got the energy from. It led to lots of ungodly alliances with other nations and other peoples who had a ton of idols. And because he was trying to please his wives, he ended up not removing idols when he should have done. And actually, it weakened his walk with God and it hindered his prosperity. Imagine what he would have been like had he not had those ungodly alliances. I mean, we think he's the richest man, as it were, of his time that ever lived. But he would have been even more, I believe, if he hadn't got those ungodly alliances. And so we need to be careful that the right people around us are helping us with our kingdom mindset, so that when we need that wise and godly counselor, my first counselor is God. He's the first one I seek. But it does say in Proverbs 11 and Proverbs 15, I think it's 11:14 and 15:22. The first one, where there's no counsel, the people fall, but in the multitude of counselors, there's safety. And then the next one is, without counsel, plans go awry, but in the multitude of counselors, they're established. Now, I've had a multitude of mentors, encouragers, teachers of different things, but I've had them, they didn't all know each other. And I would often drop them a text, and I still do it now. And we're just thinking about a decision. Could you pray for us? If you get a word, a picture, or anything that would be helpful, let me know. And it's like somebody gives me one piece of the puzzle, somebody else gives me another, and they all fit together beautifully. And we're actually making a bit of a step in our journey right now, following those principles. But the same is true for finances. We know we remember that Moses needed counselors to help him to govern properly. And we need to surround ourselves with those faith-building relationships. Ecclesiastes is very clear about two being better than one. And Amos says, can two walk together unless they are agreed? The answer is no, they can't. Not really. And so when we look at really good examples in the Bible, we can see people like Jonathan and David. That really, Jonathan's faithfulness to David really strengthened David's faith. Do you think David could have gone through that difficult time he went through in the wilderness, as it were, with Saul persecuting him, if he hadn't got that knowledge of Jonathan's support of him and encouragement of him? I don't think he would have done. So we need to build friendships and relationships that encourage our walk, and particularly our walk with God and the purpose that he's called us to. We're not very strategic often, I don't think, in the church. And so we can often get into, for example, ungodly marriage relationships. We can get under ungodly, believe it or not, oversight, where people do not have the right view of finances, either people that discount money altogether, give it all away, and actually aren't stewarding what they've got well, or they've got a love for money and they're not generous and they don't give stuff away, and they haven't got those key things right. So we need to make sure that we're not yoking ourselves either in marriage or friendship with people who don't see things in a general way that we do. So that's kind of where I'm coming from.
Yeah, and I think that's really that's really helpful. It's very challenging as well. I mean, so some of you engaging with this, you'll be in your own head. You'll be thinking, okay, so who have I got? Who are my people, my counsel, my the wisdom that I draw on?
Yes.
How would you say? How would you encourage people to go about a discernment process in this?
Well, I think first of all, you need to discern between, is it the whole person, or is it just that particular part of their mindset that isn't kingdom oriented yet? So if it's the whole person, then like it says in the Bible, have nothing to do with them. Or a friend from a distance. People often say, "Oh, we're Facebook friends," and I'm thinking that means we don't really know each other. I like the look of you. You kind of like the look of me, and that's about it. We don't know. There's no understanding, no connection, communication, or anything, and so there isn't that real friendship there. So we've got to decide: are they people who are going to influence me? And if they are, I'm very particular about who I have in my inner circle. So that's the first point. The second one, I'm thinking about Peter, especially. Bless him, poor Peter, always putting his foot in his mouth. Jesus had to turn around to him and say, get behind me, Satan. He said that in Matthew 16, didn't he? Because Peter was being a hindrance to Jesus, and what Jesus was even talking about then, Peter was butting in and not listening to what Jesus was saying. And almost in the next breath, or was it the one? It's either before or just after. Then Jesus said, "Oh, my Father in heaven's revealed that to you. Good boy, you've got a good one there." And so he's got like both. We'd call it challenge and invitation, but a sort of a compliment and a criticism almost in the same paragraph, because he was letting things in him carry him away. So just because we think, God's given us a revelation on something, doesn't mean we always hear everything according to what God says. Vast majority of people hear a little bit of what God says, unless they are really, really being spirit-led in every part of their lives. And that's the goal. So I think the guidance is recognizing who are full-time and part-time Christians, really. And the part-time ones, they shouldn't be influencing us because they haven't got a good grasp of everything. They may have a grasp of the Bible in their head, but unless they're walking it in their heart, they don't know. I'll often say, I know it, but I don't know it. So we need to know it. Both of the things together, so that we're walking in it, not just knowing it in our head. And I like the fact we have a video that talks about our school of ministry, and one of the people on the video says, and they didn't wax lyrical about the teaching, and it was I almost smiled. I thought, that's fine, that's great. But what they said was, they make you kind of put it into practice. It's the practical application. And I thought, spot on. That's what my heart is. I don't want people to get fat in their head, filled with knowledge and all this kind. I want them to get fat in their heart. Don't take that analogy too far, but in other words, to build strength and capacity and everything in their hearts, so that we're all together, not just them, me as well, being led by the Spirit and walking together. So that's what I'd say about that first one. Notice the difference between whether or not they're part-time Christians, in which case you can be friendly like a Facebook friend, but the full-time ones, those that are all walking together, you can build alliances. This is an alliance, what you and I are doing together, because we're doing something kingdom together. We can do that because we have a similar mindset. And you can't do that when people don't have the same worldview, not in the same way.
That's right. That's really good. Yeah, I hope that's helpful to some of you who are kind of just turning this over in your heads at the moment. And We had just this week we've had our leadership huddles, which are opportunities where we come together, and kind of got several of them going to ask questions of how is God discipling us, and what does that look like. We were doing the learning circle, and so it's a lot of time around the kind of question about discuss. Who do you draw from? Who do you draw wisdom from? What does it look like to do that? And then the account bit, how does that play out? Because you need the right people to be able to keep to keep you focused on what God's calling you to do, and how you're called to live in His prosperity.
Absolutely. And I have a faith sensor on my body. I can sniff fear a mile off. Someone has got fear around certain things, around anything, but especially around prosperity, given we're talking about that today. If anyone's got fear around that area, my sensor picks up on it. And I know that they're not where I am. Then we're not walking on the same path. Now, it may just be, and this is why I have a conversation with people to see if they're teachable, if they're open to learning. It may just be that they've never been taught it. And so many people don't know because they've not had that righteous and godly teaching. But other people, they've had it, they've resisted it. And because it doesn't agree with their worldview, thank you very much. We can be Facebook friends, but that's about it. You're not going to be influenced by me, and I'm certainly not going to be influenced by you. I want faith-filled friends surrounding me. I want hardworking, disciplined people around me, and people who are generous and kingdom-minded. When I started living by faith after a massive breakdown in my marriage, and it was a fairly public one as well, and I was devastated. And I knew God was with me. I felt His presence very strongly. But when God told me to move and how to do it and live by faith, I was absolutely clueless. But one thing I did know, I could hear Him. And because I could hear Him, and He'd looked after me, I trusted Him, and He led me step by step. And I think if God's going to particularly take you through transitions, and if we're facing uncertainty to do with anything financial, we need to really strengthen our relationship with God. And I had many people at the time who were saying, oh, you shouldn't do this, you should do that instead, you should do this. So much advice. But again, that's where I started, with asking people who were prophetic, who were spirit-led, can you pray and ask the Lord for a word? And really, those people became my tribe. They became my people, and we move now together. It's something that is an encouragement to me, but also it doesn't slow me down in terms of the kingdom. You need to have people. Imagine you were training for the Olympics. You need a good coach. You need people who are going to give you clues and help along the way. You might even need a sports massage to kind of decompress after a very difficult session. You need those people around you who are supporting you in the direction you're going. And at the time when I first launched out, I remember I didn't specifically ask people, but because they had been part of my life and had proved themselves accountable and helpful, I sent them a regular newsletter, and saying, this is what's happened this month. This is what's happened this month. What I didn't do is, I need the money for this and I need the money for that, because the Lord already said to me, you can't ask anyone for anything. He said that. Can't ask anyone for anything, because it says it in His word, doesn't it? And instead, what I found was God's provision, not just through unusual and out of the blue situations, but also through these godly people, because they were thinking, probably praying for me one day, and perhaps God put me on their heart. And then they just, somebody rang me up one day, as I said before, and said, God's told me to pay off your car loan. And I said, no, you don't understand. It's a lot of money. And they said, yes, and God's told me to pay it off. I said, it's going to be this much. Yes, and God's told me to pay it off. They weren't going to be moved because God had told them.
Yeah.
So that's the difference that having people around you, the right people, makes, I think, because not only are they supportive of what you're doing, but they're also praying for you regularly. and God can prompt them. I'm not saying that's the reason that you choose them. Let me just say that you choose them because they're giving you godly advice and wise counsel. But you don't know how God may stir somebody, and God stirs all kinds of people I've never met to be a blessing. So I want to encourage those of you, particularly who are stepping out in faith more in this area, to bear these principles in mind, especially this last one. Make sure that you attend to that your inner circle, and don't put more weight than you should do on someone's opinion just because they're a close relative or a close friend. The question is, are they sanctified? Is this part of their life sanctified? Have they got revelation? If not, they shouldn't really be one of your wise counselors.
That's very good. Really, really good place to end on. So, you know, circumstances change. These kind of things adjust. You have to keep being prayerful, thoughtful about where to draw wisdom from, and it's absolutely crucial to living in the prosperity and the ways, kind of the way of Jesus, the richness of Jesus.
Yeah, absolutely.
To have the right voices around us.
Yeah. Amen.
Brilliant. Thanks so much, Tina. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you for your graciousness in coming with me on this journey and helping to draw these things out. It's been splendid, and I know I'm blessed, and I know that other people that are going to listen to this and digest a lot of these things, they're going to be blessed because you've helped to draw them out. I'm not sure I'd have done it on my own.
Well, it's been great fun and a privilege to do. And just you know, spoiler alert, but we are plotting and planning for some future videos as well. So watch out for the next and the final, the 53rd video, which will be the summary.
And summary video.
The summary video, and then we'll be able to tell you all more about other videos we're going to do. So have a great day, everyone. See you
Be blessed.
All right.
God bless. Bye.